All right, writing workshop, finishing off today's lesson folder by continuing our discussion of the research process. Now, as we said in our last lesson, one of the steps of the research process is to find sources, and really the key word in this presentation is the word reliable right there. As I mentioned on Monday's lesson, the internet is a big place and the internet is a free place. And because the internet is very free, there's a lot of false information out there. So we do have to know kind of the process of finding sources that are trustworthy or not. Here's a good example right here. The Babylon Bee, one of my favorite websites just because of how funny it is. But let's take a look at this thing. So we've got this website, the Babylon Bee right here. It presents itself as a news source, right? We see news, video, podcast store, newsletter. It seems like, and it's pretty well-designed website, right? Let's take a look at this. Impeachment fails, Trump reinstated as president, February 13th, 2021, 70,000 shares. Look at that. So we have this short article right here that's trying to claim that because the second impeachment trial against Donald Trump failed, that he is all of a sudden our president again. Someone who is not informed about how to spot unreliable sources might think that this is somehow a real news story and share it, spread it around the internet to spread misinformation. Now, I'm sure we can tell just through critical thinking that this is not a real article. This is fake news. It's actually satire. It's designed to be a joke. Notice how they characterize Joe Biden right here. That son of a gun has done it again, muttered Joe Biden to himself as he began to clean out his desk. I thought we had him the second time for sure. Now I've got to clean out the place right in the middle of nap time, right? Obviously, President Biden didn't say something like that, right? But they are kind of making fun of his character right there, too. This is an example of satire. I want to point out this website looks professionally designed. There are a couple of red flags that come up that might show that this is a fake news website. Then again, for someone who's not super informed on how these things work, it's really easy to get fooled by these things. And that's why we want to learn our process for kind of evaluating how reliable a website is. So first of all, what makes a website reliable? Generally, the first thing I look for as a little quick key for research is a website's domain name. The domain name is those last three letters in a website's URL. In general, .orgs, .govs, and .edus are usually reliable for research. .orgs are established organizations. They pay to have their website. .govs are U.S. government websites. .edus are school-related websites, usually colleges. Oftentimes, things like public high schools are like K12.us. .coms, .nets, and .infos. Now, .com and .net are probably the two most common URLs, probably most common domain names on the entire internet. The reason why they're sometimes reliable is that anyone and their mother can purchase a .com or a .net space on the internet. So this is where the internet has a lot of that freedom. Some information is good, as we know. There's a lot of .coms out there. Facebook is a .com. There's obviously a lot of misinformation there as well. Anything else for the sake of our research paper is probably unreliable for research. There might be a couple of like country code websites that might be useful. .uk is the United Kingdom, .ca is Canada, even Canadian universities. So let me know if you found something from a foreign country that might be useful, but I would avoid anything else. No .ios, .biz, unreliable for research. They're not going to serve your purposes well. So what do we do with those sometimes reliables, the .coms and .nets especially, where the information might be good, it might not be good? Once again, any person or company can create a .com, .net, or .info, and we need to check for accuracy. There's some quick and easy questions we can look for in order to check for accuracy of information on one of these websites. The first thing we always want to look for is who the creator or author is. Who created this site? Does it have a copyright? Is there a company behind it? Is there an author listed, especially for news articles? Notice that Babylon Bee article did not have an author listed. It's a red flag. When was this site last updated? Is there a date listed? This is more or less just on a relevance sort of pattern. If you're researching a topic that's more recent, let's say you're researching the Keystone XL pipeline, right, for your research project or for your research paper. If the website was last updated in 2014, probably not current enough for the research that you're doing. If there's no date listed at all, that's also a red flag, because you have no idea how current, how up-to-date that information is. Another general question, who is the site trying to reach? How does the site look? If the site looks like it's a joke, it's a joke. If the site looks like it's designed for children, it's designed for children. You do want to evaluate the audience of your source to know whether it's useful for a professional level, a school level research project. And lastly, where does the information come from? This is a good example of looking back at the Babylon Bee, right? If we look at that article, they don't list their sources at all, right? They mention something that Joe Biden allegedly said, but they don't say where that source came from, right? It's because they don't have a source. One thing, if you're not sure about a fact that shows up in your research, is you can check that fact against other sources to see if that information is accurate or not. Going a little more in depth with this topic, there is a test called the CRAP test. It's a really apt name for this because you want to figure out if an online resource is crap or not. 5 things to look for as you evaluate the reliability of a website. Going back to date, currency. When was the information published or posted? Is it too old or is there no date at all? Has the information been revised or updated? So again, that Keystone XL pipeline article, maybe it says written in 2014, but then it might say revised 2019, where someone went back to that article and made changes. Totally fine. Are the links functional? A website that has a bunch of broken links is probably a website that hasn't been updated in a long time and is not current. Relevance has more to do with a research level rather than reliability, but does the information relate to your topic or answer your question? This goes back, who is the intended audience? Is this for children? Is this a joke? Is the information at an appropriate level? For the sake of our research paper, I do want you kind of imagining that you're a college student, so we're doing professional level research. And then lastly, have you looked at a variety of sources? Have you chosen a source, or are you pulling information from a source that works well for what you're writing about? Authority is super important. Who is the author, publisher, source, sponsor, company that came up with this information? Do they have some kind of hidden agenda? Does the author have credentials? If you're reading, say, a professional news article, right? You can look up that author to see if that's a real reporter or not. Organizational affiliations. We'll talk about media bias in a little bit here. What are the author's qualifications? Let's say you're doing a research on the Keystone XL pipeline, and they mention a Mr. Johnson who says that the pipeline would be unsafe from an environmental standpoint. You look up a bit about Mr. Johnson and you find out that he's just an elementary school teacher, right? Well, what does Mr. Johnson know about environmental concerns behind a natural gas pipeline? Probably not much. But if it was Dr. Johnson, then from University of Wisconsin-Madison, who has a doctorate in geology, then yeah, we're probably going to trust Dr. Johnson. Accuracy, so reliability, truthfulness, correctness of the content. Again, where does the info come from? Evaluate it against multiple sources. Does the language seem unbiased? Again, we'll look at media bias in a little bit here, but again, you can double check for accuracy against multiple sources. And then lastly, purpose. What is the purpose of the information? This is what helps us spot things like fake news. If you can tell that something's kind of written as a joke or written as comedy, then you know it's not trustworthy for research. Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? Again, numbers don't lie. If you have true statistics or data, that can't be debated, so to speak. People might spin it for a certain agenda, but the numbers don't lie. Propaganda we'll talk about when we talk about media bias as well. So once again, you can use that CRAP test to kind of tell if a source is good or not. If a source checks off some boxes and doesn't check others, it might be something that you use or not. But if you're comparing two sources, take the one that checks off more boxes than the other for the sake of reliability and doing good research. Let's talk about media bias here a little bit. Trusted news sources. For many of the research topics that you guys might be choosing for your research paper, news sources might be a good way to go. However, as we know, there's a lot of political bias in the news. There are some news sources that lean really liberal towards the Democrat side. There are some news sources that are heavily conservative, lean toward the Republican side. How do we spot when a news article is trying to spin something along a political agenda? Let's take a look. This is a quick guide for you called the media bias chart. Now, there's a lot of information on this chart right here, so I'll let you kind of look through this on your own. But the thing to note here, I just want to teach you how to read this data a little bit. On the x-axis, so you notice x-axis, left-leaning, so towards the liberal side, the Democrat side, right-leaning towards the conservative Republican side, and then obviously right in the middle you have the most unbiased as well. And they kind of divide that up at the top here too. So most extreme left all the way far left, most extreme right, all the way far right. In the middle, you have the most unbiased reporting right there as well. On the y-axis, they're evaluating news value and reliability. So as factual as possible towards the top. So it goes original fact reporting, who collects facts first, the Associated Press, Reuters, and UPI. Fact reporting, who takes the stuff from the Associated Press and Reuters and reports it through their media channels, is right here. Mostly analysis, mix of fact reporting and analysis, so more commentary on the facts right here. Almost completely analysis here in the middle. Straight up opinion right below that. So notice we're starting to get more into the fringes right there. Jezebel is a pretty left-leaning news source. A lot of right ones as well. The Washington Times, Town Hall, the Daily Wire is one that pops out on Facebook quite a bit. They go on and on. It just keeps getting worse as you get to the bottom. Selective, incomplete, unfair persuasion, propaganda, or other issues. Occupy Democrats is a bit problematic. What else do we have here? PragerU is problematic as well. The Epoch Times. We're starting to get into kind of propaganda and spreading falsities at that point. At the very bottom, you have contains misleading info. InfoWars is one that spreads a lot of misinformation on the conservative side. And then just at the very bottom, contains completely inaccurate info, straight up lies. The National Enquirer, WorldTruth.tv, Natural.news, those ones you want to avoid entirely. So once again, just if you are using news sources, I highly recommend you stay in this cluster up here in the center. The more you go to the left, you're going to see a little more liberal spin. A good example would be the New York Times, NBC, MSNBC, The Atlantic, Politico. In the center, you got about as unbiased as possible from a political standpoint. NPR is wonderful for that. BBC News is excellent as well. And once again, the Associated Press, Reuters, and UPI is almost entirely just facts, what happened, no analysis or commentary. Towards the conservative side, the Wall Street Journal and Christianity Today and The Hill are rather good reporting as well. I know that's a lot of information to take in. You can read through this source as you like, but maybe as you find a news source, compare it against this chart to see just where it leans, left or right, or what sort of reporting it does, facts, analysis, or commentary. What do we do with Wikipedia? Now, as you know, Wikipedia is a wonderful resource for looking up basic information. I might be an English teacher, but I love Wikipedia. The issue, it's not reliable for research. I'm sure you know why. It's because we cannot verify who writes any of the information on Wikipedia. It's an open source for anyone to go in and change information as they like. One thing that I would say is that you should use Wikipedia to see if it leads you to other sources. Most articles on Wikipedia have references listed at the bottom that will take you to real websites. Let's take a look. I've used Beowulf here because I use a similar presentation for my freshmen, and we're reading a graphic novel of Beowulf this year. Beowulf is an ancient Old English hero. It's actually the earliest piece of English literature is the Epic of Beowulf. Notice it's written in Old English. I can't even read that. Big Wikipedia article. There's a lot of information on Beowulf. So I can't use any of this information, no matter how good or bad it is. But if I go to the bottom of this page, we see notes and citations right here. And the trick, and sources as well, and further reading as well, and external links as well. So let's say one of my research questions is, where did Beowulf live? Right? So I kind of want to know where in the world Beowulf is set. Was he a real person? Where did he actually live? As I note, anything here is blue and clickable. Most of these are academic articles, so I can't really tell what they're about until I actually click on them. I might look for more of a posted article here, like Beowulf's Great Hall. Let's take a look at that. And here we go. It pulls me to a website called History Today. Notice this article does have an author, does have publication information. 2006. I'm not too worried about date on this one. The story of Beowulf is over 1,000 years old, so it's okay if the information is from 2006 on here. John D. Niles reports on the search for the real location of Heorot. the hall where Beowulf feasted before fighting the monster Grendel. This would probably be a good source for checking into my research question here. So once again, I can kind of save this article for later. I might hit the favorite button to save it to my favorites bar. That just helps me to continue on with my research. If I go back to Wikipedia here, once again, lots and lots of clickable blue stuff here. This might be a good place to actually start my research on Beowulf, just to see what kinds of immediate resources pop up as ones that I can look at. Again, I can check references, I can check sources as well. These are going to take me to other articles, other websites. Further reading is going to take me to books. I'm not too worried about that. External links is going to take me to full web pages as well. So Beowulf introduction, article introducing various translations and adaptations of Beowulf. That might be helpful for my research as well. So I'm not saying you can't use Wikipedia. I'm just saying if you do, make sure that the first thing you look at are your references here at the bottom. That's kind of a nice little collection of sources that you can check immediately as soon as you start researching. In the interest of time, I'm actually not going to work through this little quiz right here. It does say for each of the links we click on, let's evaluate whether the site is reliable or unreliable. This is a good time to practice using the CRAP test. Click on each of these sources just to see which ones that you would trust and which ones you wouldn't trust for the sake of research. Some of these should be obvious just by looking at them. Others are a little bit trickier, but have fun with that. Once again, no assignment with this for now as we close out our first grading period of the semester, but this will start to set you up for success as you start your research for your research paper next week.